Greetings. Hello, everybody. Hey, Dan. Hey, Dave. Hey, Joel.
Hey, Rick.
How you doing, guys?
Hello.
Thanks for tuning in, people. We are the Brady Bunch, looking at our little setup here. And we are here to
You're
celebrate...
Alice, Rick.
I wanted to be Marsha. But in all seriousness, we are here to celebrate Eddie Van Halen. I've rounded up 3 of the most kick-ass guitar players in Australia. So I'm just going to let viewers know who they are because, as I was saying to the guys, this is an international show, man, and some guys might not know who you are. So on that side of me, it's all backwards, so I don't want to say left or right, is Dan COX from The Poor. Hey, Dan. The Poor are a kick-ass Aussie rock and roll band, good old tradition of pub rock Aussie bands. So, how you doing, Dan?
Good.
That's good. That's good. If you've got any more gain on that mic, mate, I might just get you to bump it up a little bit.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah,
I'm just quiet.
You are. He says he's quiet, and he is. I know Dan, and as a person, he's a quiet dude, but you see him on stage, and he is just one of these guys that fucking owns it and just hair flying and guitars in the air, and absolute pleasure to have you on, my friend. Directly underneath him, we have Joel from Frankie's world famous house band, who was also the house guitar player. Good to see you, Joel. Now, you were also, I said this before, the house band guitar player in the Eddie Van Halen tribute show that did the rounds around Australia recently, and you blew my fucking mind, dude. I come up as a guest afterwards, and I'm like, I'm going to play after that guy. He is nailing all this fucking Van Halen on a Les Paul with no whammy bar, doing dive bombs and shit. So, good to have you on, my friend.
Thanks, man. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for asking me on to play the tribute shows too, mate. I had a ball.
Man, you were awesome.
Oh, thank you. And directly under me in our little screen split of doom is Dave Leslie of The Baby Animals. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, Rick. Good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for asking me to come on.
No worries, not a problem. Because of all my friends, I know a couple of people that knew Ed Van Halen, but you actually toured with Van Halen back in, what was it, 91?
91, 92, I think it was.
91, 92, yeah. The Baby Animals on the After You Were Shaved and Dangerous album. It was the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually before that record, but it was the FUCK tour. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to point out to any of my American or international viewers that there's a video doing the rounds just after Ed died of Eddie backstage playing a red Strat and carving it up, and that's actually your guitar, isn't it, Dave?
It's my old red Strat. Yeah.
So that was awesome to see that video doing the rounds and going, I've played that guitar. Cool. So, folks watching this, if we've got any serious audio issues, it's the first time I've had this many people on at once. Please let me know in the comments, and we've got a backup plan as a plan B, but all seems to be going all right at the moment. I'm going to do the rounds and start with Dan and ask Dan, when did you first hear Van Halen, mate? Tell us about the first time you ever heard him.
I think it was... I know it was not as far back as probably everyone else. Because I only got into him, I think I would have only been like 15 or 16.
Okay.
And I'd already been playing, like, getting into Steve Vai and Satriani and all those guys. Mm-hmm. And then I stumbled across the Live Without a Net concert.
Yep.
So when I bought that concert, and I think that was my first introduction to Eddie, really. I knew, obviously everyone knew Jump and all that stuff. Uh-huh. But yeah, watching that concert, and it blew my mind because that dude is just super energetic, always got a smile on his face, and I was just like, wow, he's the man. So then I just went Eddie crazy after that. He shortly became my favorite.
Yeah, I got to say, I went through a period as around the same age, 15 or so, where it was all about Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, and Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
Joel, I'm going to throw to you, mate. When was the first time you heard the Mr. Ed playing?
Well, man, I can't remember the first thing I heard from him, but definitely the first thing I heard that really blew me away was Spanish Fly. That was like, because everyone was talking about, Eruption, and I thought, fuck, that was just so exotic. There was just stuff happening there. So I went straight to Van Halen 2, and that's I don't know if it's just a nostalgia thing because it's the first thing you hear, your first sort of memory of coming across someone. But that's definitely my favourite Van Halen album. Pretty much everything off Van Halen 2, I sort of prefer that to the first one, which is always a bit of a bone of contention with a lot of people.
It's funny you say that, man, because I didn't have Van Halen 2 until much later on in the piece. It was Van Halen 1, 1984 and 5150 were the big ones at first before I dived a bit deeper. Yeah. Dave, how about you, mate? When did you first hear Eddie Van Halen playing?
It was afternoon TV show. I forget the name of the show, but they used to play videos and film clips, back when kids shows and everything did that sort of thing. And they played You Really Got Me. And then so on the strength of that, I went out and bought the cassette of the first record, and changed my life from that point on. I took a copy of Eruption to my guitar teacher and said, "Can I do this? Can you teach me how to do this?" He's like, "That's not a guitar. What the hell is that?" It was like otherworldly. It was like nothing that anyone had ever heard before. It's amazing.
For me, I remember the first time I heard it. I was familiar with Jump and Dreams were on the radio and the TV. And I had a friend who had an older brother that was totally into the guitar that luckily was, for us, he was in the army and he was never at home, but he spent all his money on guitar gear and he had all this Les Paul stashed under his bed and all the pedals and everything. And my brother went through his tape collection and said, "You've got to hear this, man," and played me Eruption. Fuck me. It was just like, exactly like you said your guitar teacher, Dave, said, that's not guitar. It's like, is that guitar? What the fuck? How can I do that? And so started the obsession.
I've been trying to play it ever since.
Did you guys ever go through a stage of maybe playing too much like Eddie Van Halen? I know in the 80s, there was so many Van Halen clones out there, and I was totally guilty of it myself, that if ever I played fast, it was the two-handed tapping. And any of you guys ever feel that you were guilty of that at all? No?
Not guilty of it so much, but there was a time, after we'd finished touring when we'd hooked ourselves up with a bunch of 5150 amps and all that sort of stuff, where there was a bit of it definitely rubbed off on me, but I don't have the technical prowess to pull that sort of stuff off, so it would have only been an attempt to try and play like it,
Dave, it's funny that you mentioned those 5150s, because after that tour, the distributor in Australia, Australis, I think it was at the time, were offering those amps as having been used by baby animals, and I got my hands on one of those to consider
Really?
buying. Yeah. This was probably around about the time I met you too. And I took one of those amps home. I took it to a gig, and I'm gonna admit something. I wasn't that sold on the sound of it on the 5150. It was a bit too buzzy for my liking, straight up. But I did have an ADA preamp, and this one right behind me there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yep, there it is. I ran that through the power amp section, going into the effects loop, and holy hell, the sound of an ADA through that power amp in the 5150 actually blew my mind. It was one of the ones that you used on that tour.
Right, yeah. Well, that's 120 watts, 4 6L6s. It's going to move a bit of air.
Absolutely. So, guys, we mentioned.
I'd love to have that amp.
Oh yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool, guys. As I mentioned earlier, there was the Eddie Van Halen tribute that did the rounds of Australia, and Joel was the house guitar player in that, and had a few different guests at each city. Dan, what songs did you play?
I chose Pound Cake and Is This Love, I think?
No, When It's Love.
When It's Love, that's it.
You did When It's Love, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That was awesome, man. They were so good.
Weren't they? Yeah, I remember watching you doing Pound Cake, man, and you up there, and as I said, you're a quiet fella in everyday life, but up on stage there, you spent most of your time airborne.
No, I felt that gig was very daunting. I don't know if everyone else had the same vibes, but man, it was probably the one gig I was the most nervous about. And lately, like, I don't usually get nervous anymore, but I was freaking out backstage before I went out on stage for that one.
Man, they all felt like that though. Like all of I think that Brisbane one that I did with you, Dan, that was the second one. So we'd done Sydney, then we did Brisbane, and then Adelaide, and then finished up with Melbourne. But they were all like that. I think because like every guest really just took it so seriously. And so there was just a weight behind everyone sort of felt some expectation. And man, I did with every single one, and it was a bit tricky for me because like a lot of the guys, like Rick, man, I'd never even met you face to face. Like I know Dan, I know Dave. I hadn't met Jason from the Super Jesus. A lot of this stuff we were just like emailing back and forth and taking a real punt on one another. Like, do you want to come and do this gig or do these songs? No one really knew. Well, you never really know until you get to a sound check and you plug in, and then you're like, oh, okay, no, this guy's going to be okay. But man, every gig, like everyone bought it. And man, with you, Rick, man, like there was a friend of yours that was going to do it, and then he couldn't. He recommended you to me.
Oh, cool.
And so I just took a punt, sent you an email, and if you remember, just saying, man, we're doing this show. Would you be keen to do it? And it literally was just born from that. So. We never quite knew what was going to happen until we turned up to the gig. But man, everyone was so good. Like that was the part that really kind of blew me away more than anything. Was just how good each player, how varied each player was. No one was necessarily trying to clone Eddie, obviously, just doing their own thing. I think that's what made the show so interesting because everyone was so varied and they just played their way. But of course, like had to respect the material as best they could.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Dave, what songs did you play, man?
Can you remember, Joel? I think I did.
I
did Panama.
Man, Mean Street and Panama.
Mean Street minus the intro.
I did the intro. I did the intro.
I did.
Rick did the intro. It took me ages to try and figure it. Like I got close, and I thought, nah, man, it's either if it's not going to be good enough, then it's not going to be good enough. So I thought, I'll ditch it rather than stand there, with my dick in the wind. So,
I took a punt on doing it, and I actually went up to the microphone before Main Street and said into the mic, folks, I've picked a song that probably has the hardest intro of any Van Halen song. If I completely eat shit, just clap your hands as if I'm doing just fine. And everyone was absolutely fucking cheering, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, I'm eating shit. It wasn't until afterwards I saw the video and you had one of the singers behind me clapping his hands, getting everyone going. It was like, that's why they were cheering. And I thought it was me eating shit.
Yeah, that was a good idea. I should have just gutsed it anyway. But anyway.
Yeah.
Did anyone do Eruption, Joel? Did any of the guys pull off Eruption? Go down that road?
Jason from Super Jesus did it.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he nailed it too.
He killed it.
Yeah, it was really good.
He absolutely nailed it. Yeah, he did.
I wanted to, but
I think
that's a really sort of a scary one to do, isn't it?
It is because everyone knows it so well. Now, I just wanted to ask you guys, like with the songs
you're so exposed.
With the songs that you guys learnt for the actual gig, did you actually learn anything about Ed's playing from sitting down and trying to learn something note for note of his?
Oh. Yep, 100%, mate. Like, and for me, it kept going from gig to gig because I noticed as the gigs got on, I knew little, more of each song, like little things. Because even as I was doing these gigs, I'd still be, checking little tutorials on YouTube and stuff like that, and and just I'd figure out more things along the way. And man, I learned so much, and I just learned, that certain things will fall really naturally under Ed's hands, but only his hands, if you know what I mean. So I could try and like copy a lick, and it would just sound, even if I played it technically note for note, it would just sound shit because it wasn't natural. So I'd sort of have to just, take what I can and play it in a way that would be presented as, my natural playing. But yeah, man, it was fucking, you never stop learning when you're listening to that stuff. And it's not even the playing, it's the tones and all that sort of stuff, man. There's just so much there in his body of work.
Absolutely. How about you, Dan? Did you pick up anything from learning your songs?
When I went into the whole thing, because I'd played a couple Van Halen songs before, I sort of decided to not go with anything that I'd ever learnt before. So I went with a fresh approach, I really want to learn these two songs because I love, Sammy Hagar and that era. So I just sort of took it as a time to go, this is my chance to learn two fresh songs. Let's see what I can get out of it. And yeah, they weren't songs that were typical Eddie, they're not songs where Eddie goes crazy and does heaps of his, tapping techniques or stuff like that. But I still found there was a lot more to them, even when he's just being melodic. I was like, wow, there's actually a lot more in these songs than I expected. So I did learn quite a bit. Like in that Pound Cake song, learning that, trying to get a happy medium of the harmonics that he plays during the verses, which he does on the album compared to what he does live. So I sort of picked and chose which one sounded the best because he always changed them every time he played them live. And there's it's not the same. It's little sequences that just define those moments. And it's he's so clever. He's so clever.
I do remember leading up to that week, you and I were both practicing our parts at home and messaging each other, and that was a big headache for you. It was like, oh, dude, he never plays it the same twice. On the live version, he does this, he does that. And I remember saying to you, man, it doesn't matter. No one's going to pick up on that. No. And you're like, yeah, but I'm going to know.
But Eddie fans know, man. Eddie fans are just fanatical. They know everything. That's why I was like, I better get this right. Otherwise, I could absolutely burn myself on stage.
And Dave, how about you, man? I must apologise to you guys. I had it on you guys individual, but my mic stand decided to eat shit in case you guys just saw me then go. People love the train wreck. That's why you're here. Dave, what did you pick up from learning the Ed songs, man?
The bit that I got was, like the other two boys have said, how clever compositionally the solos and everything are, and just the way Ed plays them to try and emulate or get into the ballpark of that phrasing or that kind of note generation. But also, the rhythm. He's just an amazing rhythm comp. Yeah. It wasn't strumming. It was it was clawing kind of these compy kind of rhythms underneath things, and that's a life's work in itself, I reckon. Just listening to the rhythm parts and his approach rhythmically to do that, It was a real eye opener for me. Yeah.
I got to say, what I really appreciate about Ed is, like you say, not what he's playing during the solos. And you said, the rhythm, he doesn't, it's not even traditional rhythm guitar. It's like he's playing lead guitar all the way through the song, but in such a way that just supports the song, outlines the chords. There's definitely styles, that I'm seeing, certain shapes that he uses when he's playing the rhythm parts, but he's not playing it in a rhythm style. It's very rarely that he'll strum traditionally, like I say, it's all picked.
He's always riffing.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys go to any lengths slowing down things, or Joel, how did you learn stuff, man? Because you had it nailed, and that was a lot of songs. How did you learn the parts?
How did I learn? The really sort of finicky stuff, I would just look at, his live clips just to see, even just sort of where his hand is, and then I'd sort of be comparing that with a whole heap of just other YouTube tutorials. There's a couple of guys out there who are really, really good really slowing down each thing, and man, just non-stop listening. But I was also sort of conscious to not like burn myself out on it and go too much into it, because the main thing with us with doing these shows was it wasn't so much like replicating exactly what Eddie does. It was more like trying to create the energy and the spirit of those songs, which is so naturally there. So we wanted to just really enjoy ourselves when we were playing. So I'd learn everything up until a point where I thought, okay, well now I'm sort of burning a candle. I'm going backwards. So then I'd stop there, and then I'd just go out and just play it live and just sort of hope for the best. I mean, I already kind of knew everything, sort of maybe 65, 70%. And the way I play, and I play like a Les Paul. Like, I mean, I've got limitations there anyway, but it was the limitations that kind of made it kind of exciting for me. Like if I was to go to a show, like as a viewer, I liked seeing people put their take on that when they, if they don't have the whammy bar or all that sort of thing. So yeah, man, but it was constant. Like I was just throughout all of those shows, like I kept listening. Because I could still be inspired always listening to those songs. The songs are just so good. That's the other main thing. It's not just the playing. Like those songs are just, man, I listen to them all the time. I never get sick of them.
And man, you rounded up some awesome singers for the show. That's some hard stuff to sing. Not just a David Lee Roth, the Sammy Hagar stuff. And I know, was it Simon Melly? Was that his name?
It was Simon Melly. Man, to be honest, that was even more of a punt to me in my mind than the guitar side of it. Because, when guys say, you can sort of get away with a David Lee Roth sort of a shtick thing. You don't have to be an amazing singer, but you've got to be an entertaining person, and you've got to be able to perform and all that sort of stuff. But man, there's no hiding behind how incredible Sammy is as a singer. You know what I mean? So again, it was like coming to meet you guys to just play guitar. I knew Simon Melly, but I didn't know Pat Carmody from Melbourne. And he was doing all of the Sammy material, and he was so good, man. Yeah, it was just so good.
Awesome. Yeah. Man, I want to ask you guys, Hagar or Roth? Hagar or Roth? Hagar, Dan, you already said that.
Yeah.
Joel?
Man, I don't know, man. I kind of, at the moment, I'm probably more in a bit of I'd have to sort of lean a bit more towards Hagar, actually. And I've seen Hagar live at his club in Mexico, only a few years back for his 65th or whatever. And him and Michael Anthony were there playing, and they were literally on stage with bottles of tequila, like chugging and just jumping up and down, singing. Like, he is the real deal, Hagar. So I don't know. I love them both, but maybe Hagar, I think.
Dave?
Yeah, I have to concur with the other boys. I mean, having toured with the Sammy version of the band, he's a pretty extraordinary guy and an extraordinary singer as well. Night after night, just stood there and delivered it and stuff like that. But my age is making me want to go with David Lee Roth too, because that was my first kind of, introduction to it. So it's too close to call, man. It's like apples and oranges for me.
Yeah. So,
you, Rick?
When I was a youngster and started playing guitar, it was the Sammy Hagar era. So I was way into that. And then it was later in life when YouTube came about that I actually saw David Lee Roth live with Van Halen and just went, oh, fucking... So they've got, Sammy Hagar might be one of the greatest singers on earth, but David Lee Roth was one of the greatest showmen on earth out front. And wow, just in a different way, they completely owned it. So it is a split for me. More David Lee Roth as I'm older, and when I was younger, it was Sammy Hagar, because that was what was popular at the time. Did all of you guys see Van Halen when they came out to Australia?
I was too young, I think.
You're too young, Dan?
Yeah, the Paul played with them, so I'm spewing. I wasn't in the band back then.
Oh, no. Joel, you did see them?
Yeah, I saw them at that Stone Fest. I think it was when they headlined it with Aerosmith. I think that was 2015, 2014.
Okay. That's the one where they all
so
wore the
that's-
vests, right? They were all wearing their smart vests and with David Lee Roth out front again.
Yeah, it was definitely,
Yep.
and it was with Wolfgang, and that was a few years ago. That was yeah, man, it was awesome.
They only played Sydney on that one, didn't they?
Yeah.
That was like a one show.
Yeah.
But,
I did
yeah,
catch the tour that they had Gary Cherone fronting them. I met Gary Cherone the very next night at the Playroom. I went to go see the Tea Party playing, and who was there? But Gary Cherone and Michael Anthony. I missed Michael Anthony. But Dave, have you ever seen Van Halen? Of course you fucking have. I want to ask you, when you're on tour
maybe 50 or 60 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, were you watching them from side of the stage, or were you down in the pits? Where were you watching them from?
Kind of all over, but I spent a lot of time, either over Ed's side or Mikey's side. Yeah, you could go for both, either side. There was entertainment to be had either side, so it was you could go to Ed's side and in his bunker where Matt Bruck the tech was. There's 2 quad boxes.
Yeah.
Excuse me. That had left and right effect send going there, so you go in to sit and listen to Ed, for a while, or you go over to Mikey's side where there's a party going on.
I heard about the Anthony Bar and Grill.
Yeah, the Anthony Bar. Yeah. You'd sit and get a nice frozen margarita and hang with Datehead, his tech, and it was pretty good fun. It was good.
Do you remember the first time you actually met Ed in person?
That was the first time I ever saw him was when it was during our sound check. It was for the first night in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we were sound checking, and we're halfway through doing early warning or something like that, and I looked down and Ed and Alex are sitting in the front row, and I'm like, oh man.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I was like, I think there's something wrong with my amp. I ran back to the back line, and but it was really good. And they were so friendly, man. And then so we went to our dressing room that night, and they just both came in. Just hey, you guys, crazy Aussies, welcome and all this sort of stuff. And it was it was really good. We were really well treated on that tour. It was great.
Awesome.
Given every kind of given a sound check whenever we possibly could get one, and all that sort of stuff, we were well looked after, which is great.
Did you eventually free up and were able to play in front of him without freezing up?
Well, we spent a lot of time jamming backstage, kind of thing. So, there was a time where, it was okay. You kind of got used to it, and then all of a sudden, it's like you didn't actually believe it was happening. So it was a bit of a dream, anyway. Yeah.
And did he ever actually show you anything on the guitar? Was there a moment where you went, "Hey, man, how do you do that?" And he showed you anything?
There was a few moments where I went, "Hey, man." He's like, "Nah, man, I'm not gonna fucking show you anything." I'm like, "Oh, come on, throw me a freaking bone here." But no, he's like, just a couple of little hammer-on-y things, but he didn't. He's like, "I'm not going to give you a fucking guitar lesson. Just go get me a beer."
Classic. Man, it must have just been an absolute spin-out, to actually be on the road with him that much, and get to see Ed the human, I guess, not just the guitar rider up on the big screen.
It was really cool, Valerie came out in the road and stuff like that, and they're nice fellas. It's a family kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it was really good to see in that side of him. Yeah. We got Wolfgang a little tiny baby animals T-shirt when he was a little toddler.
Yeah,
stuff like that. It's cool.
I'm just having a look in the chat room there, folks. Watching, if you have any questions, please throw them at us in the chat room. I did see something just come up there. Oh, Dan, the Makita drill. Someone's brought up the Makita drill. Did you ever get your drill back from the gig?
Yes, I did.
You did. You were spewing. I remember. Yeah, that after the show, your drill had gone missing. It showed up then. Yep.
Yeah, it showed up.
Because that was a bit of a family heirloom, wasn't it? It was your dad's.
Yeah, it was my dad's drill from his old business because he's a cabinet maker, and it was like the same era as the drill that Eddie used. So I think it was a Ryobi, but yeah, Eddie used the Makita, and it was almost like identical. So I was like, "Can I have that?" He was like, "Yeah." He had it laying.
The old ones have got better tone, I reckon. The old drills.
Yeah, it sounded so good. Well, I had a new one, and it sounded crap compared to this one.
And you striped it and everything as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll quickly grab it. I'll show you.
Yes. Dave, you got any stories you want to share about Eddie on the road that a side of him that maybe people wouldn't know about?
Well, he loved Angus. He loved Angus Young. I know that much.
Oh, really?
We used to do a lot of jamming to AC/DC and stuff like that. And
yeah,
the times where he would say, "Well, today I want to be Malcolm and you be Angus," and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be Angus in front of you. I'll be Malcolm and you be Angus."
Someone was asking in the questions there. Dan's got the drill. Show us the drill, mate.
Yeah, man.
Just don't get your hair caught in it, man. Do a Paul Gilbert. Because that did actually happen to Paul Gilbert in Japan live. He got his hair caught in the drill when he was doing the whole picks on the end thing.
Really? Very tap. Yeah.
yeah. Someone's asking, who showed EVH Deep Purple riffs? There's videos on YouTube. Does that ring a bell, Dave?
Yeah, we used to jam on sort of Deep Purple Highway Star, and then we got up with them on I think it was at the end of at the end of our set on the last night of the run. They got up on Mikey and Ed got up during our set, and Mikey sang Highway Star, and myself and Ed did the harmony guitar solos in it and stuff.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, Mikey sang the shit out of it too, man. He's unreal. He was amazing. He had really high those high bits.
Yeah.
He was really good.
No way. And you were touring with the 50 on 50s for a while after that, mate. Were you a fan of his amps?
Well, they were really big. I used to think that they used to play me a bit because we got, when we were back home, it's like, well, what do you want to use? And I said, well, I want to be like Ed and use 3 quad boxes, wet, dry, wet. And, use a dry one in the middle and then have stereo effects and do all this sort of shit that I'd heard. And when I got on it, it played me. There's so much going on. They're just big, gainy things. But I've heard rumours that, Ed's 5150s were a little bit worked anyway. Yeah. And I don't know, he just didn't use the clean channel at all, just used to use the high gain channel. And, the volume knob was the clean channel of the guitar. Yeah. And but I liked it, but it was just really big sounding. But I know what you mean about the gain thing. I used a Strat, and so they were pretty gnarly on the top end with a Strat. Yeah. But good fun, really loud. Man, 3 quad boxes? Jeepers, it's unheard of.
Did you ever play through his rig?
Yes, one time I did. I convinced Matty Bruck, his tech, to give us a hack on his thing. I didn't actually call it a hack, but that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it sounded just like me, except really loud. I was thinking that it would, here's the secret. I'll finally get a chance to, do that and get whatever the secret source is. But it wasn't. It was just me, but really loud. Yeah.
Isn't that the way? Like, you can play through all these different amps and think, this is the secret source right here. I'm going to sound like this, and no, it just sounds like yourself, isn't it? It's all in the fingers.
Yeah, 9 to 42 to E flat too. So it was kind of like, whoa. Yeah, it was pretty scary. It didn't last too long up there.
Yeah. So, you said down to E flat. I actually read it was 9 to 40 that he was using, so even lighter.
Probably. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Very light touch, man. Yeah.
And did you play the infamous Frankenstrat? Did you ever come across that?
We visited 5150 or Ed's house one time on a day off, and had a couple of beers and everything like that, and went up to 5150 and went upstairs where the workshop is, and there's all these guitars hanging up there. There's like a 59 Les Paul there and all this stuff, and the Frankenstrat was there. So yeah, I did have a chance to just see it up close. I'm thinking, man, I've seen so many pictures of this guitar. Yeah, it's really funny when you finally see it in the flesh. You go, wow, it's exactly like it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing that's I think overlooked with Eddie is just his innovation in guitars. Really, isn't it? The fact that he was the first guy to the first guy who popularized sticking a humbucker into a Strat. The whole Floyd Rose tremolo. Man, I'm just thinking how much I myself as a player owe to Ed, because I'm always playing a humbucker in a Strat. I need to have a trem on there. So many innovations. Let's not even mention tapping. Fuck, where did that come from? I have seen him explaining where he got that from. But just a brilliant guy. And it was a bit of a. I'm not going to say I was shocked when he died. It was everywhere. How I found out was I opened up Facebook, and my friend Mark from Tone Talk, Mark Huzansky, I saw his post on Facebook that just said, "No words," and I knew just from that oh fuck, Eddie Van Halen's died, hadn't he? So yeah, it was a strange thing. I don't know about for you guys, but I still see guys, international guitar YouTubers, that every other day are posting things, just going, "Man, I'm still in shock that Ed's gone." Did it play with you guys, like to bring the whole mortality thing to mind?
Yeah, man. When I heard it that morning, I remember driving to the gym actually, really early in the morning. So I probably heard it before, anyone else that I know around here. And man, that whole day I was just kind of really flat. And you hear things, and then you sort of you move on to the next news bite and stuff. That one was just something I just couldn't. No, it's a cliche, but I just seriously just couldn't believe it. It's like talking about the innovation and stuff. Just how important he was, and just when I'd heard that he passed away, and then I was thinking about Alex and stuff. And fuck, man, imagine how he would feel. They're entire they are seriously this unit. They've never ever strayed from one another. It was crazy, man. It's just unbelievable, really.
Yeah. Hey Dan, you said that your band The Poor actually played with Van Halen, opened for them back in the day. Have they shared any stories about when they played with them?
Yeah, Skeeny's told me a few.
Yeah,
but I don't really want to say any of them because I probably won't get the details right.
Maybe you should call up Skeeny.
I think he's got a few cheeky ones about, I think, when Eddie was sober, and bringing him backstage and, giving him some alcohol.
Yeah.
But
naughty.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they have a lot of stories, but I can't exactly convey them because I wasn't there. But man, I wish I was. That would have been insane.
Yeah. Now I'm just throwing back to when we all played the tribute shows there. It was amazing and very hard to play, as we were saying before, just having a room full of guys standing there with their arms folded, and we're all shitting ourselves leading up to it. But just seeing some of the other guys that were on the show, Joel, you had quite a lineup, mate, of people that were paying tribute to Ed by coming up and playing. How did you choose everybody? Was it just recommendation from people? Because there's some great players.
It was so weird. It was really hard to sort of decide where to go, because this guy sort of approached us and said, "Can you tour this? Just go and find the guests." So we're just kind of and he didn't really even sort of say anything about budget, what you can offer them or any of that sort of. He just so we just sort of went out cold, and we could have got sort of the more established, well-known guys. I instantly had thought of Dave, because I know that there was a connection there anyway, but we were just sort of keen to get guys that were for the most part, sort of not as known. You know what I mean? That's why I was so happy to just kind of reach out to anyone who was keen to be part of it, and just because that would be cool for an audience, to see new players and sort of totally, who's this guy? What's he going to do now? But the audiences were really sort of supportive of every different player. It was a hard task, though, man. To be honest, that was a real challenge. Like sort of having to sort of manage it from the beginning to the actual show.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we just wanted different new sort of players for the most part.
Yep. So I know for me, afterwards, in hindsight, if I could go back and change anything about the way I played, I was so concerned about playing it fucking note perfect. And when I see videos that I actually didn't jump around and get into it as much as what I normally would, because you've got this little spot of, here you go, 2 songs, go. So it
was so much harder for you guys. For you, like you guys had it way harder than I did. It was kind of really a bit of a luxury for me, because I'd get to go up there, sort of like break in my nerves with a few songs, then introduce someone else, then jump off and slam a few beers, and then kind of relax a bit more, and that's just the way the whole gig went. Yeah. It was very tricky for you. I know what it's like to have to get up there and do a couple of songs, and then you're done. It's hard for you to get into it when you've only got that sort of small window.
It takes 2 songs just to get warmed up, and that I was a bit sneaky.
Oh, yeah.
I snuck in 2.5 songs, because at sound check, actually I think it was the day before, I messaged you, hey, and I said, do you reckon the boys would know 50 on 50? And geez, I asked everyone what songs they played. I played Unchained and Mean Street. But at the last minute, threw it at you guys whether you knew 50 on 50 to play that intro right up until
lead into Unchained.
Unchained, yeah. And it was one of those things that just turned up at soundcheck and go, you guys know this? Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, go. And I love those kinds of things where you're just flying in the seat of your pants, and when it just happens.
Yeah, that's why it worked. It worked because it wasn't really that prepped. Everyone was a bit on edge. Oh, try this. Oh, and then if they'd gone over it a million times at home, it would have been a bit sterile. But that was kind of what was a bit cool and dangerous about that. You suggesting that, and it worked, man.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it did, because I love that intro.
Sorry, man. In hindsight, for that gig for me, I was like, I look back on it and think, man, I should have just played my Les Paul. I would have been so much more comfortable up there just playing the guitar I play every week on stage. But me being me, I got overexcited the week before and bought a guitar and painted the damn thing and played a new guitar I've never played on stage.
Is that it behind you right now?
Yeah.
Give us a look at it, mate. Give us a look.
Yeah.
And while you're grabbing that, Dave, is there anything you'd change in hindsight about your performance?
Yes, I remember to turn the overdrive pedal on, because it wasn't my rig, and I realised that halfway through the first song, I'm thinking, man, it sounded a lot different at soundcheck. It was a lot it had a little more gain and compression going. Yeah, it wasn't until halfway through the second song I went, oh, that's right. There's a button I should have pushed, but it's all right. It all went over. It all went past so quick anyway. It was just fun. It was just like a big adrenaline rush. And you're right. Like, the whole thing about that Ed's thing is that it's not uptight at all. It's loose and jammy, and it's kind of like it skids off into the dirt, and it's really kind of groovy and everything like that. And if you stand there kind of uptight and get it all right, it's kind of, that's not the inner way. It's the opposite of that. It's like just throw stuff at it.
What rig were you using on the night, Dave?
I was using Jason from Super Jesus's Marshall. I think it was like a 50-watt JMP. Lovely old head. He had a couple of pedals and stuff like that running into it, and it sounded really cool just on its own. It didn't really bother me, but it was missing a little bit of that sponge, that little bit of that pushback that you get. I thought, it's a little more honest than what it was before. Anyway, it was good fun though. Yeah, it was great.
And Dan, you had your 50 on 53. Is it a 50 on 53 that you had?
53.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's what Dave meant before, but it was probably the loudest noise, because I remember during soundcheck I turned it on and everyone was like, "Why is your amp so noisy?" I'm like, "You won't hear it when we play." Like, it was just, but that thing, just straight into the blue channel, cranked up, and it was perfect source for for the Van Halen.
I borrowed an SLO 100 off a friend, and
Yeah, that was awesome,
what a beast that was.
That was so good.
Yeah. I've actually got a Soldano preamp that I just bought last week sitting right beside me over here. I'm not in love with it, to tell you the truth. It's nothing like the head. I was a little disappointed. I'll give it another week or so before I decide that. But Joel, you were just using
I was going to ask how that was.
Hey, what's that?
I was going to ask you how that was.
I did a little recording with it this afternoon, direct through some impulse responses, and it sounded a bit better, but I think I just need to play with it a bit more. Joel, you were using Wretched Backline. Was it different from show to show?
Yeah, it was kind of tricky actually, because you could either choose from like a JCM, like a DSL, like one of those JCM 2000s, or an 800. 800 sort of a bit like, I don't know, bit too one-dimensional, just sort of does one thing. It didn't quite do the Ed thing that well. Or you could take a punt on like a 59 Plexi, but I mean they're so super clean, and you got to crank them, right up to get. So I think on that night actually they had a DSL. I tried it out, but then a mate of mine actually turned up on that night with one of the old school the PV, the 5150s. So I used that for the first time. And funny, what Dave was saying about it feeling like it played him. I kind of felt that way a bit as well. It was such a fucking bull in a china shop. Like, it was just such a beast of a thing. That I kind of, every time I try and sort of tweak something, I fucked it up more. I was like, I think I ended up getting Bobby, the bass player, to just come. I said, mate, can you just make this kind of sound good for me as best you can? And he did a bit with it, and then I just got like a sort of a semi kind of a high gainish thing, but it was so hot that I think I didn't even kick in an overdrive for solos. I just sort of kept it on the one thing the whole way through.
Yeah, cool. Now Dan's got his guitar there that he's going to show us. I'm going to say, man, I got in a lot of trouble with my mum when I was about 15 years old, because I had my little cheap Stratocaster copy that me and my friends took to and tried to paint it like the Frankenstein. And my mum just would not understand why the hell I would do that to this beautiful Sunburst Strat that she bought for me. Now, Dan, show us your piece, mate. I'm just going to change the view.
I did the better thing, and I actually got one of the EVH models that was already like primer grey. So it was quite unassuming from the start. And I was like, well, I won't mind if I paint this thing because it's just primer grey. So rubbed it back and sort of dedicated it to the 5150 guitar, which was, not the Frankenstrat. So
yep.
It's like a modern take. It is actually an EVH model.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see there, I've left the EVH logo on it.
Yep.
And then just it's sort of like this version is like a modern take. So it's kind of got the setup like a Wolfgang with the two pickups, but in the shape of the original Kramer that he had. So
I'm jealous, mate.
It took a little while, but I mean, it took me a day and a half or two days to completely finish it. But it was fun. It was a process. I watched this guy on YouTube that did a Frankenstrat replica, and just learning some of the aspects behind how he originally painted that thing was mind blowing. Like,
yeah, right.
Did it in his backyard with like bicycle paint and just even in cold, damp weather, he painted that thing and tried to rub it back with super solid like sandpaper because the original one was the white and black one, right? The Frankenstrat. And then he took to it, rubbed it back, and if you look real close, you can still see the sandpaper marks where he just like roughly just tried to rub it back and then just went, let's put some red over it, and so it was a really interesting and a great experience just painting that. So it was good.
Awesome. Okay, there's a couple of questions come through, and funnily enough, they're for Dave. Question for Dave. Can you tell us the story about when Ed gave you the Ernie Ball Music Man, and did he give one to Suze as well?
The story was, we did 2 legs of that tour with them, and it was the last night of the first leg. And Ed, it was all would always come into our dressing room anyway, you know, and just was very kind of open. But he had a guitar case with him in this particular time, and he's plonked this case on the table and gestured to me. He said, "Hey, you know, come check this out." And so, yeah, opened up this case, and in it was this red Ernie Ball Music Man, you know. And I said, "Oh, is that your new guitar?" And he said, "No, it's your new guitar." Oh, yes!
Wow.
And I just happened to have it right here.
Well, let me see. Look, I've hit the wrong button. Show me. Look at that. There it is.
That's the girl. Yeah, I spent the next 2 years played the shit out of it, man. It needs new frets and stuff like that. But yeah, great. It's a great guitar, and yeah, I do love it very much.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's
mate.
cool. So yes, Sue's got one too. He used to because he always played guitar. Every time he saw it, there's a guitar around his neck. Just practicing noodle, whatever, you know, just playing. And he had this gold top one. It was like a prototype. It had a black headstock, and it was gold top with a maple neck, obviously, fretboard. And on the last night of the last tour, he took it off and gave it to Suze. Yeah, and everyone's just like, "Oh wow, the gold top!"
Oh, nice.
Not that I wasn't, you know, or a little bit jealous, but I was kind of happy with mine anyway. You know, but yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty nice gesture, you know. It was really cool. It was such a great experience.
Well, you know what, mate? You passed on the kind gesture not long after that. I think it was the Shaved and Dangerous tour you guys did just after that run of Van Halen shows, where I first met you.
And
we
went bungee jumping.
Yeah, but before we did that, or was it after? You ended up coming to my house, and you know, I was 18, 19 or something like that. You came to my house. We jammed till fucking 4 a.m. till some bastard turned my power off. Someone went to my power.
I remember that.
And switched the fucking power off. But you said to me, "What guitars do you want me to bring?" I'm like, maybe the Van Halen and the Nuno, because you had one that Nuno had given you, the Washburn N4. And I can remember, mate, just beaming, sitting on my bed, jamming with you, case of beer out till fucking someone turned our power off at 4 a.m. with my posters of Eddie Van Halen and Nuno and stuff, with their actual guitars, and just going, how the fuck does this happen? You know, it was great. So
it was a fun night, man.
Yeah. Ed blew your mind there, and you passed it on, mate. And then yes, we did go bungee jumping the next day. That was fucking.
Yeah, we did. The next day.
That was great. I got a photo of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll have to dig that out. Now, somewhere along the line, guys, just to wrap things up, because we are hitting up an hour, and some of you said you could only spare an hour, and I'm very thankful for you guys having a bit of a chat tonight. But somewhere along the thing, people were talking about the sound of different amps, and they mentioned the Ed thing. And I just want to ask each one of you, what is the Ed thing to you? I'll start with you, Joel.
Oh man, well, just that perfect sort of, just like that totally cranked thing where you can still hear every note, but it's still hot, like it's high gain, but it's not fizzy, like it's got guts to it, you know. Man, I just those first 4 albums, that to me is kind of like just like the perfect rock guitar sound. That's sort of what I think of Ed's playing. Ed's tone.
Awesome. Dan, how about you, man? What's the Ed thing?
Well, I play through the 5150 every night that I'm on stage, so like I guess it's just the same as what Joel said. It's like that sound is so responsive. So it's got so much balls and grit and deep low end. Like it's obviously the Brown sound that Ed is known for. But when you go into those single licks and guitar like runs, it just bounces out. Like there's a lot of natural compression and sustain in the notes, yet it just bites and cuts through the mix. Yet when you get into like chunky rhythms, it's just in your face and it's so responsive. Like it's not like playing through a Marshall or something like that. You get a different feel under your fingers when you're playing that tone that Eddie has. It's not so much. It's not very forgiving, but it's it's getting there.
Yeah. And Dave, I mean, you got to hear Ed's rig and hear him play in person night after night for a while there. What's the Ed thing to you?
It was exactly what the other two guys have said as well, and just the fact that you can, it's driven and all that sort of stuff, and it's high gain, but you can hear all the details in all the voicings that he plays too. All those colours, all those little voicings and stuff like that, all that sort of shit shines through. So that it's a pretty it's a rare kind of undescribable thing. Because on one instance it's brutal and it's like wow, but then you pull it back a little bit and all of a sudden it opens up all these stuff. So you can hear these great comping voicings and rhythm stuff that he does.
But do you guys think that's in his fingers rather than the gear?
Somewhat's in his fingers, yeah. But I think his gear complements it as well. Like he was the master of tone chasing. Like he created that sound really, and a lot of other guys chased after it.
Yeah, that's right. He was the one that did it first. Yeah, you're right.
But one thing that always struck me about Ed, and there's songs where you would swear just by the attack that he's down picking it, and then you see videos of him and he's fucking alternate picking it, and it's like, dude, you sound like Hetfield with that whole attack that only downstroking can get.
It's that natural compression through his amp.
He's getting that when he goes, how the fuck are you doing that, man? And I think a lot of that's in his hands. Plus the whole gain thing, I've spoken to guys that have worked with him, working on different amplifiers and his rigs, and they all say it's ridiculous the amount of gain that he was asking for. Eventually in the later days, he was just like, more gain. But it didn't turn to mush. Anybody else, it just turned to fucking mush. So I really think a lot of that. Well, Dave, you were jamming with him backstage, man. Like, what was he playing through then with little practice amps, right?
Yeah, a PV Rage or something like that.
Yeah, I remember you telling me years ago. It still sounded like him, right?
Yeah, he was on our bus one night, and he had a couple, and he was using Susie's old telly through a rat pedal through our 4-track that we had in the back lounge, through the speakers in the back lounge, and it sounded just like him. It's like just that tone. You can just tell. It's like, wow, man, that's what you sound. That's what you sound like. So, I mean, a lot of it's in the hands, and then, but exactly like Dan said, he chased a sound too. He tweaked the gear and innovated and chased this ideal that he could hear. And got to that point where it complemented his whole approach. Yeah. And, you put me over a 5150 amp and I don't sound like Ed Van Halen, that's for sure. But it's the same gear,
Yeah, yeah.
That's where a lot of guitarists go wrong, I think, because they see someone playing gear and they think, I'm just going to run out and buy that same thing, and don't realize that a lot of it is in the fingers as well and in the person's playing. I mean, you only get sort of 80%, 70% of the sound that you're after. The rest, you can get that tone, but you can't get that same sound unless you actually spend all that time learning his licks and the feel and the dynamic playing that was Eddie. So,
yeah,
absolutely. Guys, we've hit that 1 hour mark. I'm going to thank you guys for your time. I'm going to ask you one last question before we go, and that is, if we went back and did the Van Halen tribute shows again, and you could technically play any Van Halen song, pull it out piece of piss, which song would you play if you didn't have to learn it and go, holy fuck, I can't play that? Is there a particular song of his that may have been out of reach that you thought to play that you would do now? Anything spring to mind?
Oh, that's a hard one.
The intro to Mean Streets.
Hang on, let's see. Am I game to do this?
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a while. Too much delay. Oh, that was sloppy. Sloppy, but you get the
Not
gist.
bad, man. Pretty
Beautiful,
good.
mate. Nice.
It's those harmonics, trying to get those fucking tapped harmonics to get it just right. It's like, fuck, got that one. Oh, I missed that one. Yeah, if I had my time over, I would do that one properly. Guys, thanks. Nice way to spend my Wednesday night, having a bit of a chat with some fellas. And thanks, Joel, for having me on the show, mate. It was an honour to come along and have a play.
Mate, thank you.
Thanks,
No
Joel.
problem, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Joel.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
No
Awesome, mate.
We'll
Nice
do it
chatting
again next
to you.
year.
Let's do it again.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely
Yes.
do it again.
Let's do that. Let's
We'll
do that.
do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's time for me to hit the button, and when I hit the button, this happens.